John McClain joins us, Hall of Fame columnist, 365 Sports with Craig and Paul. David Smoke. John, thanks for your time. The Combine has begun. A lot of course, athletes with their future in the hands of Indianapolis, plus a lot of NFL meetings and much more. Speculation, general managers, whoever else talking. Anything that you've seen from today that came out that was of interest to you?
Absolutely. First of all, anybody that has thought the Bears might keep Justin Fields and not trade him and draft Caleb Williams is off their rocker. And even though the Bears have been a terrible franchise most of the time since they won a Super Bowl in 1985, Caleb Williams is a generational prospect, and they've had Justin Fields long enough to know if they believe they can win a Super Bowl with him. And if you don't think you can win a Super Bowl with your quarterback you've had as long as they have, you need to trade him. So they'll trade him, and there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested, and that's good because they can get them to bet against each other. Now, one of the things they'll get is they'll probably get a second-round pick this year, maybe a lower pick, and then next year they'll get another pick and maybe even a second one, but they should be able to get at least 3, maybe 4. And if they're smart, the top pick in each of those drafts should be conditional, where if he leads a team to the playoffs or he wins a playoff game or he gets to the Super Bowl or wins the Super Bowl, it should be elevated to a first-round pick. I think Atlanta, Pittsburgh, the Raiders, those teams are going to be interested. Maybe the Broncos, maybe Sean Payton likes them. It's amazing how many teams need quarterbacks. Now, Caleb Williams is going to the Bears. Then the question is, which quarterback goes next? Drake May to Washington or Jalen Daniels? And then what does New England do? Probably take the next one. But because Caleb Williams is from Washington, went to high school there, he may want to go back. And of course, that'd be great for all Washington fans. But I can't imagine there would be a package that's good enough that the Commanders could make that would be able to entice Chicago to make that trade. Now, maybe the Bears like Drake May better from North Carolina. Maybe they like Daniels better at LSU, but they'd be the only ones that did.
John, the Broncos are in a sticky wicket, I guess, with Russell Wilson's contract, in that whatever they do, they're going to be stuck with it. Nobody's going to be motivated to trade for him at all. For him, what does he have to just wait all of this out to see who drafts a quarterback? You know, what his situation is going to be, probably where Kirk Cousins goes before him and all of that?
No. They've got to get rid of him because he has like $37 million that'll be guaranteed if he's on the roster like March 15th or 17th. So he's gone. And if you look at his stats, last year he had 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 8 interceptions. His rating was 98. That's pretty good. So when he's cut, he's not going to need money. He can make the minimum, veteran minimum, and go somewhere. And I think somebody will give him a chance. But he's out of there. Maybe they draft J.J. McCarthy. This combine is more important for J.J. McCarthy than any quarterback, than any player, because he didn't get to throw the ball a whole lot at Michigan. He's got to show people he can throw every route. He's got a chance to go into the top 10 as the fourth quarterback, go into Atlanta at number 8, or the Broncos, or any of those teams that need a quarterback. So I'm really eager to watch him throw. Last year, C.J. Stroud through. Bryce Young did not. It didn't keep Young from being the first overall pick, but Stroud had a great day, as you should when you're throwing against air, and that's set up for his pro day, his private workouts, and then the Texans and other teams fell in love with him. But this is a great chance for players to make their mark, even though they're not going against anybody.
John, we were just talking about Derrick Henry a little while ago because there's all these different things that are coming out from the combine. I guess the Titans have left the door cracked open in the instance that things find themselves to where it would make sense to bring him back. But what does the market look like, you think, for a 30-year-old running back with all the carries that he has, but also still awfully good?
Not good, because the market for running backs is just not good anymore. If he could get $10 million, he should jump on it. I don't think it's going to be with the Titans. I think their new GM and their new coach, or not new GM, Rand Crawford's been there a year, but with him and Brian Callahan, I think they want to go with Tajay Spears and then bring in another back. And I think that Derrick Henry will still be in demand by teams that are in the playoffs but need to make the next step, a team like Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Pollard is unrestricted, and he's not going to be a big market for him. And but the Cowboys ought to seriously consider Derrick Henry. So should Baltimore. Any coach that likes to run the ball should consider Derrick Henry.
John, the running back position was like people were scared to draft running backs, at least very high for the longest of time. It was a rarity. Bijan went high to Atlanta. It seemed like there was, with what Jahmyr Gibbs did and some others, maybe a comeback at that position. But is it just never going to be one where a lot of people put too much money into it?
Well, Bijan Robinson stood out in the class by himself, and Gibbs was second. And Gibbs helped Detroit make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and he rotated with Montgomery. But and then Bijan Robinson rotated with Tyler Algiers. He's good too. He had 1,000 yards 2 years ago. It's weird the way we use 1,000 yards as a benchmark. 1,000 yards meant something when they played 14 games. Now they play 17. We ought to be talking about 1,500. But because everybody runs so little and wants to have more than one back, I guess it should be 1,200. But I think if you have a Bijan Robinson, he can do everything and also has great character. I think teams should be crazy not to jump on it.
John, what do you think the market, like what it's a reasonable, I mean, not maybe for Derrick Henry because he's a little bit older than the rest of these guys, but Jacobs, Barkley, Eckler, Pollard, are they looking at 3-year deals or 2-year deals? What are they really looking at?
Paul, there's one down here. All the fans want Barkley to come here. And there's somebody saying, like, 3 years, 3 years, $38 million. I don't see them paying a running back $12 million a year. They got Devin Singletary last year had a career high in carries and rushes. He did not fumble one time, and he's a good receiver. They want to re-sign him, but he's not a main guy. Saquon Barkley comes here, he's a main guy. They don't need a main guy. And not many teams want a main guy anymore, but they want to be paid like a main guy. So he's going to have to accept it. Jonathan Taylor accepted it last year when he came back for Indy, and he's got his new deal. But a lot of it has to be in incentives, easily made incentives. They call it likely to be made incentives to give them motivation to know that there's money out there if they achieve certain standards.
John, wouldn't the Texans, because they do have quite a few draft picks, just be better off drafting someone in the middle rounds if they re-sign Devin Singletary that maybe could turn into that alpha dog?
Either that or they get some guy that fits the zone scheme. They still have Damian Pierce, who's really talented, but he couldn't make the adjustment to the zone scheme. Now, will he be able to do it next year? They had a coach who never coached it, and he's back. So will Pierce be better? If Pierce can adjust, they don't need a back. They need a third back. But I suspect that D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio will look around the league and find some guys second or third on a depth chart who they think will fit in the scheme, and they'll get him either that or a low draft choice.
John, what do you love most about the Combine?
Being around so many people, getting to talk to the coaches, general managers. Used to be where the media room was. They had to walk right by the opening where you could hang around outside the hall and nobody could escape you unless they ran. Now they have the media isolated where they have to want to come over there. But it's fun to get to hang out and talk to Andy Reid before or after his interview session, or if you bump into him somewhere. And if you know where to go, bars, late after dinner, and after they're through interviewing prospects, you can get a lot of good back and forth with people there when most of the stuff is off the record. But you have to be careful because about 10% of what you hear is true. And just know anytime you talk to somebody, there's a good chance they're lying to you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's what I heard too. We had John Cooper from Our Lad's Guide to the Draft yesterday. We've had him on consistently. And I asked him about when there's the pro day on campus, when the coaches or the scouts are talking to position coaches from the team, from, like, for example, when they visited Baylor or whoever it might be, how those coaches have to be absolutely accurate and also very open about players, the issues, the good, the bad, maybe the ugly or indifferent. How hard is that for a coach to maybe talk about his own player that way?
Well, you got to learn who's telling you the truth over time. Most of them are not going to be honest and tell you the guy's got off the field issues. The late great C.O. Boccato, best scout I've ever seen, went to Baylor, and he was at the combine. A lot of the drills they do, he invented. He said the guys you want to get to know at schools are the strength and rehab coaches and the trainers, because they spend so much time with the players, more than the coaches do, and they see them in a way behind the scenes that coaches don't. And that kind of trust is built up over time. And you wonder, Bill Belichick's best friend is Nick Saban. Didn't Nick Saban tell Bill Belichick about Mac Jones might have some issues? Because Mac Jones has issues. He's had them the last 2 years, and they come out. He doesn't work hard enough. He's got a big opinion of himself. You'd think they would know those kind of things, but you have to develop your sources, just like in the media. Then you got to learn who you can trust and who you can't. And most coaches are going to paint a rosy picture of their prospects because they want them drafted, because they use that in recruiting.
John, do you think that how does that change now with more college coaches and NFL coaches crossing paths? It used to be a bit more of a separation when it came to wanting jobs. Like, some guys were college coaches, some guys were NFL coaches, and there wasn't as much transference, but there's a lot more now.
Well, the transfer portal, I think, is ruining college football, and I'm all for players getting paid, but I don't think you should be able to transfer more than once under any circumstances and play immediately. Otherwise, you should go out the old days. But players today, you have one great year, you want to raise from your school. If they won't do it, then, hey, Phil Knight will do it in Oregon, and teams will lose a highly decorated quarterback in high school to a team like Oregon. I don't know if you guys know any schools like that, and that's just the way it is. You know, if they're mercenaries, and the big schools, if Baylor develops a player, there's a good chance one of the big schools is going to come in there and make them a huge offer, and Baylor's got to step up to keep them. And that's just the way of the world. The games are still great. We love the sport itself. It's just so much difference. I'm happy for players making money. I just don't think they should be able to bounce around from team to team like a pinball, picking up this money here and that money there.
John, Peter King announced that he is going to be no longer doing his column, stepping away, figuring some things out as far as the future goes, but an institution around the NFL for a very long time, much like yourself. Do you have any particular thoughts on Peter King? Not calling it a career per se, but kind of calling it a career in some ways.
1981, I was at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. Oilers playing the Bengals. And there was an empty seat between me and the main beat writer from the Cincinnati Enquirer, Mike Gott. And Mike said, by the way, I want to give you a heads up. The kid that's going to sit here is doing a sidebar. He covers the University of Cincinnati. He's going to talk your head off. So just be warned. And the guy sits down and says, hi, I'm Peter. And he talked my head off. And Peter and I have had a lot of fun telling that story through the decades. And then 3 years later, he was covering the Giants for Newsday, then the NFL for Sports Illustrated. There's never been a writer who built up the trust that he did with coaches, general managers, and owners, which gave him unprecedented access. And, boy, his column is going to be missed by many.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It really will be. He said his biggest regret was how he reported Deflategate, that he felt like he made a mistake with that.
Well, when you do it as long as he has done, and you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Oh, he admitted it too. Yeah,
you got to admit it and move on. And so I think, Peter, I told him you're going to have a lot of opportunities. As soon as people see you're retiring, quote unquote, they're going to reach out to you with offers, and just consider them carefully.
Thank you, John. You would know. You would know.
Second bear.
Thank you very much, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. Great dude, man. The memory,